Hello children, welcome to today's English class. Hope you all are safe, healthy and happy at home, and a lot of learning is going on these days. You remember children, in the last two classes we had learnt two poems from your prose text. Today, before I tell you what we are going to learn, I would like to take you back to the past, history. In class 9th, you had learnt about the Nazi rule, about Nazism, isn't it? In history you had learnt about the world wars, about the Nazi rule, okay? And you had also learnt in history about the different kinds of rules that existed in the past, like the military rule, dictatorship, okay, and the king's rule, and how people's life was under all these kinds of rules. And especially you might have read about Hitler, Nazism, and how the Jews had to suffer a lot during the Nazi rule. Okay, so I would also like you to go back to history and recall the sufferings of the Jews, because this particular lesson is connected to the past. Okay, you might also remember terms like Holocaust, okay, terms like gas chambers, concentration camps. You know, these are the terms related to the sufferings which the Jews had to undergo during the Nazi rule. They were tortured, they were killed in millions, they had to hide, and they had to travel from one place to another place without the knowledge of the Nazis. And as it had happened in the past, wars and sufferings had a great effect on children. You might have also read about this. So this particular chapter talks about the effect of the wars and sufferings on children. Wars always bring destruction, and dictatorship, military rule always have been torturing people in the past. And we get to know about all these from the history textbook and various other sources. You know children, even the Jews were not allowed to maintain any record to note down their feelings, because they felt the world should not know about the sufferings which they were making the people undergo during their regime. So they used to burn all the records, isn't it? So this particular chapter is the diary of a young girl, Anne Frank. You have also learnt a diary entry in class 9th. Okay, and many of you also might be recording your feelings in the form of a diary entry. I know many of you have the habit of writing diaries, okay, which is very informative. And some of you would keep it very or make it very personal. Okay, you would not like anyone to read your diary. So Anne Frank here writes her autobiography, which was published for the first time in 1947. Okay, she initially introduces herself, her family, and she also talks about the circumstances which made her write this diary. So let's move to the lesson. From the diary of Anne Frank. Since it is an autobiography, it has been written by Anne Frank. Okay? Now, look at this picture. It is of Anne Frank, and what she has written there. This is a photo as I would wish myself to look all the time. Then I would maybe have a chance to come to Hollywood. Isn't it? She has written this on 10th October 1942. She has loved this photograph of her, and she says that she would always like to look like this so that she could go to Hollywood. So these were her thoughts about her appearance. Okay. Anneliese Mary Anne Frank, 12th June 1929, February March 1945. So 1929 to 1945. She was a German-born Jewish girl who wrote while hiding with her family and 4 friends in Amsterdam during the German occupation of the Netherlands in World War II. Her family had moved to Amsterdam after the Nazis gained power in Germany, but were trapped when the Nazi occupation extended into the Netherlands. As persecutions against the Jewish population increased, the family went into hiding in July 1942 in hidden rooms in her father Otto Frank's office building. After 2 years in hiding, the group was betrayed and transported to the concentration camp system, where Anne died of typhus in Bergen-Belsen within the days of her sister Margot Frank. Her father Otto, the only survivor of the group, convinced that it was a unique record. He took action to have it published in English under the name The Diary of a Young Girl. The diary was given to Anne Frank for her 13th birthday and chronicles the events of her life from 12th June 1942 until its final entry on 1st August 1944. It was eventually translated from its original Dutch into many languages and became one of the world's most widely read books. There have also been several films, television and theatrical productions, and even an opera. Here opera means it's a play where the performers perform or say the words to the music. It's a musical play. Described as a work of a mature and insightful mind, the diary provides an intimate examination of daily life under Nazi occupation. So we saw that Anne Frank was a Jewish, okay, and they had to hide. Their family had to hide because of the atrocities of the Nazis, right? We had discussed in the introduction about the sufferings the Jews had to undergo during the Nazi rule. So they had to hide, okay, especially when the German occupation of the Netherlands during the Second World War, and they had to hide in her father's office building, okay, and 2 years they were hiding there, and again they were betrayed and they were taken to concentration camps. Again in the concentration camps they were tortured, okay, and later on Annie says that she died there of typhus, okay, within days of her sister Margot Frank. And then the only survivor in the family was her father Otto Frank. And therefore when her father found her diary, and he found the diary a unique record. I told you in the beginning that there were no records. The Nazis did not allow them to keep any records. They did not want the world to know the way they were torturing the Jews. Therefore they tried to burn every record they found. So this was a unique record. This young girl had recorded all her feelings right from the German occupation by the Nazis, okay, especially the Netherlands, and how they had to hide and how they were taken to the concentration camps and what sufferings they had to undergo there. So through the eyes of this girl, everything was jotted down in her diary. And therefore what her father decided to do, he decided to publish it in English. Initially she had written in Dutch language, isn't it? And so it was published in different languages and different events of her life from 12th June 1942 till her final entry of 1st August 1944. And then it became one of the world's most widely read books. And several films, television and theatrical productions were there based on this diary, based on this unique record of Anne Frank. Okay. And even an opera, as I told you, a musical performance, a musical play was also performed on the basis of this diary. And Anne Frank's work was a matured one, and she was full of insights, isn't it? That's why it was known as a mature and an insightful mind, the work of a mature and insightful mind. So the diary provides us a lot of information about the sufferings of the Jews during the Nazi occupation. Now, what does Annie say? She says, writing in a diary is really a strange experience for someone like me. Not only because I have never written anything before, but also because it seems to me that later on, neither I nor anyone else will be interested in the musings of a 13-year-old schoolgirl. Oh well, it doesn't matter. I feel like writing, and I have an ever greater need to get all kinds of things off my chest. Here, musings means a period of reflection or thought. So she says, writing a diary is a strange experience, isn't it? You also might have tried to write your diary, and sometimes you might feel that it's really strange to record your feelings. So she feels that particularly a 13-year-old girl, as she had never written before, and she felt that maybe no one will be interested in reading her diary, the feelings and thoughts of a 13-year-old schoolgirl. You know, it will not interest people. But still, she says, it doesn't matter to her. She felt like writing. She felt like recording her feelings in a diary. She felt like recording all the sufferings which she and all the other Jews had to undergo, so that people could read and they could know what exactly had happened to the Jews under the Nazi rule. And you know, she felt maybe if she could jot down all her feelings in a diary, maybe she will feel a great relief, isn't it? She'll feel comfortable. That's why she says all kinds of things off my chest. Okay? Now, what does she say? Paper has more patience than people, isn't it? Why does she say so? Paper is a non-living thing, isn't it? So it won't object to anything being written on it. So it has more patience, whereas we people do not have patience. Maybe people do not have the patience to read the thoughts and feelings of other people or to listen to them for a long time. So she says paper has more patience than people. She says, I thought of this saying on one of those days when I was feeling a little depressed and was sitting at home with my chin in my hands, bored and listless. Okay? Wondering whether to stay in or go out. I finally stayed where I was, brooding. Yes, paper does have more patience, and since I am not planning to let anyone else read this stiff-backed notebook, grandly referred to as a diary, unless I should ever find a real friend. It probably won't make a bit of difference. Now I'm back to the point that prompted me to keep a diary in the first place. So here listless means with no energy or interest. Okay, here Anne Frank talks about the circumstances which made her write this particular diary. So she says she felt listless. Okay, she felt as though she had no energy or no interest, and she was also depressed. Okay, and initially she was not able to decide whether she should stay at home or she should go out. Then finally she decided to stay at home. And then when she decided to stay at home, she decided to write this particular diary. And she again mentions that paper does have more patience. And here she also says that she had no plans of letting anyone else to read this diary. She did not want anyone else to read her diary, so she decided to write her diary. And then she says unless she finds a real friend, a true friend. So she says now again she wants to talk about the points which prompted her to keep a diary. So she says she doesn't have a friend. Okay, here brooding means engaged in or showing deep thought about. Okay, and something that makes one sad, angry or worried. And prompted here means to provoke, to make you do something. Okay, now she says, let me put it more clearly. She had said that she did not have any friend. So she wants to make this clear. She says, since no one will believe that a 13-year-old girl is completely alone in the world. If you say that we don't have any friend, or a 13-year-old girl says that no, I don't have any friend, so it might surprise people. And she says, and I'm not. She says, I have loving parents and a 16-year-old sister, and there are about 30 people I can call friends. Okay, she says, I have a family of loving aunts and a good home. No, on the surface, I seem to have everything except my one true friend. All I think about when I am with friends is having a good time. I can't bring myself to talk about anything but ordinary everyday things. We don't seem to be able to get any closer, and that's the problem. Maybe it's my fault that we don't confide in each other. In any case, that's just how things are, and unfortunately they are not liable to change. So here she says she did have a big family. She had aunts, uncles, about 30 people in her family whom she could call friends. And her family was a loving family. She said it seemed as though everything was all right, except one thing, that is the lack of a true friend. Okay, true friend in whom she could confide. Confide means she could freely share her thoughts and her feelings. Okay, so she says she did not have a true friend, and she never got closer to any of the friends she had. She says, of course, she had friends, they met, they spoke to each other about ordinary things. So she did not feel that she had a true friend with whom she could share all her personal things. That was the reason why she decided to write a diary and note down her feelings and thoughts in it. Okay? To enhance the image of this long-awaited friend in my imagination, I don't want to jot down the facts in this diary the way most people would do, but I want the diary to be my friend, and I'm going to call this friend Kitty. Since no one would understand a word of my stories to Kitty if I were to plunge right in, I would better provide a brief sketch of my life, much as I dislike doing so. Here, to enhance means to increase, to intensify. Okay, further improve the quality. Right, now plunge means to jump or dive quick. So here she says, since she did not have a true friend, okay, she was waiting for a friend. She tried to imagine, and that friend was her diary. So she decided to write a diary, and since she considered her diary as her true friend, she decided to give a name to her diary. So she named her diary Kitty. Okay, so now she would talk to Kitty as a friend. And again here she says, it would be difficult for people to understand whatever she has written or spoken to Kitty, or whatever she has jotted down in her diary, unless and until she gives a background of her story about her sufferings, about the sufferings of the Jews. So unless and until the readers get a background, they will not be able to understand her story, even if they read Kitty, the diary. Okay, so she says she would like to give a background of the sufferings and the story of her life during the regime of the Nazis. So now she talks about her family, initially her father. My father, the most adorable father I have ever seen, didn't marry my mother until he was 36 and she was 25. My sister Margot was born in Frankfurt in Germany in 1926. I was born on 12th June 1929. I lived in Frankfurt until I was 4. My father emigrated to Holland in 1933. My mother, Edith Hollander Frank, went with him to Holland in September, while Margot and I were sent to Aachen to stay with our grandmother. Margot went to Holland in December and I followed in February, when I was plunked down on the table as a birthday present for Margot. Now here she introduces her family. She talks about her father and her mother, okay, and she says her sister Margot was born in Frankfurt in Germany in 1926 and she was born on 12th June 1929. And initially she lived in Frankfurt until she was 4 years old. Father immigrated. Immigrated means to permanently shift to a new place and settle down there. Okay. So father had immigrated and with her mother, and he went to Holland. The mother went with the father to Holland in September. Okay, while she and her sister had to stay with their grandmother. Okay, so Margaret first went to Holland in December and then in February, Anne Frank also followed her, and she went there as a birthday surprise for Margot. I started right away at the Montessori Nursery School. I stayed there until I was 6, at which time I started in the first form. In the 6th form, my teachers were Mrs. Kipperis, the headmistress. At the end of the year, we were both in tears as we said a heartbreaking farewell. In the summer of 1941, Grandma fell ill and had to have an operation. So my birthday passed with little celebration. Here farewell means an act of parting or of making someone's departure. Okay. She says the moment she also joined her parents, she went to a Montessori nursery school. A Montessori school is a nursery school, okay, preschool. So she stayed there till she was 6, and then she went to her first form or the first grade. And when she was in the 6th grade, her teacher was Mrs. Kipperis, and she was the headmistress also. And at the end of the year, both of them were in tears. Why? Because she had to leave, as in 1941 grandma fell ill and she had to undergo an operation. So her birthday was also celebrated in a simple manner. Grandma died in January 1942. No one knows how often I think of her and still love her. This birthday celebration in 1942 was intended to make up for the other, and grandma's candle was lit along with the rest. The 4 of us are still doing well, and that brings me to the present date of 20th June 1942 and the solemn dedication of my diary. So grandma died in 1942, and because she was very much attached to her grandma, she loved her so much, so often she thought about her. And this birthday in 1942 was intended to make up for the other. So she says that her birthday, what did she do? Grandma's candle was lit along with the rest. And she says the 4 of us are still doing well, and that brings me to the present date of 20th June 1942 and the solemn dedication of my diary. Here intended means planned, and solemn means to do in a religious manner or characterized by deep sincerity. Okay? So sincerely she was dedicated to writing her diary. Dedication means commitment. So children, I hope you have understood this part of the lesson which we tried to understand today. So here basically we learned something about Anne Frank, her family, and also the circumstances which made her to write this diary. She also talks briefly about her personal life, right from her birth till she joined her family, and she talks about her grandmother. Okay, and now in the next class we will be looking at her diary. I would request you to read the lesson well and look at the word meanings, and also try to understand whatever we have learned till now. I would also request you to go back to history and try to remember whatever you had learned about Nazism and the sufferings which the Jews had undergone during the Nazi rule. Okay, so that you can understand Anne Frank's diary in a better manner. So I hope you will read referring to the history also. In the next class we'll continue this lesson and look at Anne Frank's diary. Until then, take care, stay safe, stay at home.